Daehyun sat in the observation gallery of the Galactic Council chamber, his fingers moving across the datapad with practiced ease. Below him, thousands of representatives from hundreds of worlds filled the enormous hall. Some floated in special atmosphere bubbles, others rested on platforms built for their massive bodies. A few existed only as energy forms, their presence marked by glowing containment fields. He had been recording council sessions for 15 years now. Every word spoken, every gesture made, every decision reached, all of it went into his archive. The other species barely noticed him anymore. Humans were like furniture to them, present but unimportant. Today's session was the same as 46 others before it. Earth's petition for full military rights was on the agenda again. Ambassador Yuna stood at the human platform, her posture straight and dignified. She wore simple clothes compared to the elaborate garments of other ambassadors. Humans always looked plain next to the others. No scales that shimmered with inner light. No wings that could span half the chamber. No natural armor plating or built-in weapons. Just soft skin and fragile bones. Honored Council, Yuna began, her voice clear despite its lack of the booming resonance that some species possessed. Earth once again requests full military authorization. We have served this council faithfully for 200 years. We have contributed our knowledge, our labor, and our loyalty. We ask only for the same rights granted to every other member species. Councillor Vexitra rose from his crystalline seat. The Tarkosian was massive, easily 3 times Yuna's height. His body was made of living crystal that could deflect plasma fire and regenerate from almost any damage. When he spoke, his voice resonated through the chamber like music through a cave. The council appreciates Earth's contributions, Vextra said, his tone pleasant but dismissive. However, the requirements for full military status are clear. A species must demonstrate significant defensive capabilities. Humans possess no natural armor, no enhanced healing, no telepathic coordination. Your lifespans are barely a century. How can we trust such fragile beings with advanced weaponry? Daehyun recorded every word, but his eyes were not on the speakers. He watched the other counselors. The slight tilt of a Melkorian's head that indicated agreement. The subtle color shift in Aquelan's skin that showed contempt. The antenna movement of a Brenthian that signaled boredom. He had learned to read them all. High Commander Krell stood next. The Varathian was insectoid, his exoskeleton gleaming black under the chamber lights. His species had never lost a war in their recorded history. They operated as a hive mind. Millions of individuals thinking as one. In battle, they were perfectly coordinated, utterly ruthless. The Tarkosians are too kind, Krell clicked out, his voice translated by the universal devices everyone wore. Let me speak plainly. Humans are weak. They are soft-bodied creatures who die from impacts that would barely scratch a proper warrior. They require constant sustenance and rest. They cannot even survive in most standard atmospheric conditions without artificial aids. They are useful as technicians and diplomats, but warriors, never. Several counselors signaled agreement. Others remained neutral. None spoke in Earth's defense. Yuna accepted the rejection with grace. She bowed slightly and returned to her seat. Daehyun saw the tightness around her eyes, the only sign of her frustration. 47 rejections. 47 times being told humanity was too weak, too fragile, too primitive. The session moved on to other matters. Trade disputes, border negotiations, scientific exchange programs. The usual business of a galactic government. Daehyun recorded it all, but his mind wandered as it often did during these meetings. He thought about the archive hidden in his quarters. 15 years of his observations, added to the records of the dozens of human diplomats and researchers who came before him. 2 centuries of careful watching, 2 centuries of being dismissed as harmless. The galaxy species were mighty, and they knew it. The Tarkosians with their unbreakable bodies, the Varathians with their perfect military coordination, the Quellan who could regenerate entire limbs, the Melkorians who lived for thousands of years and remembered everything they learned. Each species had evolved with advantages that made them powerful. Humanity had none of these gifts. On Earth, they had been the dominant species, but only through tools and intelligence. In the galaxy, even those advantages seemed small. Alien computers were faster. Alien engineering was more advanced. Alien sciences had progressed for millennia while humans were still discovering fire. So humans had done what humans always did when faced with superior force. They watched. They learned. They adapted. And they kept their thoughts to themselves. The session ended as the station's artificial sun began to set. Dae-hyun packed his datapad and made his way through the corridors of Nexus Prime. The station was a marvel of engineering, a city in space housing millions from across the galaxy. Humans made up less than 1% of the population. He passed through the market district where vendors sold goods from 1,000 worlds. A Brenthian ignored him completely, serving a Quellan customer as if the human wasn't there. A group of Tarkosian youths laughed as they walked past, one of them deliberately bumping into Dae-hyun without apology. He stumbled but caught himself, continuing on without complaint. This was normal. Humans were beneath notice. He took a lift down to the lower maintenance levels where most humans worked. Here the corridors were narrower, the lighting dimmer. The other species rarely came down here. They had no reason to. Dae-hyun found Hana in her usual spot, elbow deep in a power junction. She was humming an old song from Earth, something about stars and hope. Her tools were scattered around her and her face was smudged with grease. "Another rejection?" she asked without looking up. 47, Dae-hyun confirmed. "They'll never change their minds," Hana said, pulling her arm free and wiping her hands on a rag. "To them will always be the weak ones." "Perhaps," Dae-hyun said carefully. He trusted Hana, but even so, he kept his deeper thoughts guarded. "How is the work going?" "Same as always. Fixing what breaks, maintaining what doesn't." She picked up a strange-looking device and frowned at it. "Though I found something odd today. There are signals in the subsystem. Encrypted ones, way beyond normal station traffic. Communications?" Dae-hyun asked, his interest sharpening. "Maybe, or maybe just glitches. Hard to say. The encryption is unlike anything I've seen before." She set the device down. "Probably nothing. Just the station systems doing weird things." Dae-hyun nodded, but he made a mental note. "Strange signals. Unusual encryption. It might be nothing. Or it might be something worth investigating." He returned to his quarters and secured the door. From a hidden compartment, he pulled out his personal terminal, the one not connected to any network. He opened his archive and began adding the day's observations. Vextra's subtle dismissal technique, Krell's aggressive posturing, the voting patterns of minor counselors, 200 years of data, patterns and behaviors, weaknesses and blind spots. The galaxy saw humans as simple record keepers and maintenance workers. They never wondered what humans did with all that information. Dae-hyun worked late into the night, as he always did. Outside his small window, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere out there was Earth, the small blue world that everyone dismissed. The weak, the fragile, the feeble. Dae-hyun smiled slightly as he worked. Let them think that. Let them believe humans were harmless. One day, that would change, though Dae-hyun didn't know it yet. That day was coming much sooner than anyone expected. In the darkness of space beyond the station, something was moving. A fleet of ships, vast and terrible, approaching Council space with hostile intent. And when they arrived, the galaxy would discover that weakness and strength were not always what they seemed. The alarm woke Dae-hyun from uneasy sleep. Not his personal alarm, but the station-wide alert that meant something serious was happening. He dressed quickly and checked his terminal. Emergency council session called. All representatives required to attend immediately. The corridors were full of confused and worried beings hurrying toward the council chamber. Dae-hyun joined the flow, his mind racing through possibilities. Emergency sessions were rare. The last one had been 30 years ago when a star went supernova near inhabited space. The chamber was chaotic when he arrived. Representatives shouted questions in dozens of languages. The translation devices could barely keep up. Dae-hyun took his usual seat in the observation gallery and activated his recording equipment. Counselor Vextra stood at the center platform, his crystalline body pulsing with agitated light. He raised his arms and the chamber fell silent. 6 hours ago, Vextra announced, his musical voice now strained. A Varathian battle fleet appeared at the edge of Council space. They have issued an ultimatum. Surrender all military authority to Varathian command within 48 hours or face total war. The chamber erupted again. Dae-hyun kept recording, but his stomach went cold. The Varathians were council members. High Commander Krell represented them. What was happening? High Commander Krell, Vextra continued, has declared that the Varathian Empire has grown tired of council inefficiency. They claim the right to lead through superior strength. They demand we submit to their military governance. A Melkorian counselor, ancient and wise, spoke up. His voice trembled. How large is the fleet? 3,000 warships, Vextra said quietly, with reports of more mobilizing in Varathian space. 3,000. Daehyun had studied military records. The entire Council defense fleet numbered perhaps 5,000 ships, scattered across hundreds of systems. Against a concentrated Varathian force coordinated by their hive mind, the Council would be at a severe disadvantage. The session devolved into arguments. Some species advocated for immediate surrender. Others called for war. Many blamed each other for not seeing this coming. Ambassador Yuna sat quietly through it all, watching and listening. Daehyun saw her making notes on her datapad. She looked calm, but her fingers moved too quickly. She was worried. Finally, Vextra called for order again. We must vote on a response. But first, we must ensure the safety of non-military species. All members without significant defensive capabilities should evacuate Council space immediately. Daehyun knew what was coming before Vextra said it. This includes the human delegation. Earth's representatives and citizens are ordered to return to your home system immediately. Yuna stood. And if the Varathians attack Earth? Vextra's silence was answer enough. I see, Yuna said softly. After 200 years of service, we are not worth defending. It is a matter of practicality, Vextra said, not quite meeting her eyes. Your people cannot defend themselves against Varathian forces. Better you retreat now than die pointlessly later. Yuna bowed and left the chamber. Daehyun followed, his recording equipment still running. He caught up with her in the corridor outside. Ambassador, he said quietly. My archive. Bring it, Yuna said. Bring everything. We're going home. The evacuation order spread through the human population of Nexus Prime within hours. Hana found Daehyun in his quarters helping him pack his equipment. They're abandoning us, she said, her voice bitter. 200 years of fixing their equipment, maintaining their systems, serving their needs. And when things get dangerous, they throw us away. Yes, Daehyun said simply. There was no point in denying it. So what do we do? Daehyun looked at his archive, 2 centuries of careful observation compressed into data storage. We go home, and we decide who we really are. The human ships departed over the next 24 hours. Daehyun watched Nexus Prime shrink behind them as their transport vessel jumped to faster-than-light travel. Around him, hundreds of humans sat in worried silence. Many were crying. Some were angry. All were afraid. On a research outpost near the border of Council space, Taeyang received the evacuation order with resignation. He had spent 20 years studying alien species, learning their psychology and biology. His laboratory was full of irreplaceable research. He packed what he could, but most would have to be left behind. As he worked, he reviewed his findings one last time. Years of careful study had revealed patterns that troubled him deeply. The superior species of the galaxy had optimized themselves for peace. The Tarkosians' unbreakable bodies made them confident to the point of arrogance. The Varathians' hive mind made them efficient but inflexible. The Quellan's regeneration made them careless. Each species had advantages that were also weaknesses if you knew how to exploit them, but Taeyang had kept these observations to himself. It wasn't his place to criticize the mighty species of the Council. He was just a human researcher barely worth noticing. Now, as war came, he wondered if his silence had been wisdom or cowardice. Captain Minji commanded the human stealth vessel Quiet Storm, one of the few military ships Earth was permitted to operate. The ship was small, designed for reconnaissance and defensive patrols. Its main feature was stealth technology that Earth had developed independently without Council assistance. When the evacuation order came, Minji ignored it. She took her ship and her crew of 30 humans into the dark space between systems, where sensors couldn't easily track them. She watched the Varathian fleet from a distance, counting ships and analyzing their formations. The fleet was vast and organized with perfect precision. Every ship moved in exact coordination with the others. Beautiful and terrifying, the hive mind made them nearly unbeatable in conventional warfare, but Minji saw something else. She saw a single point of failure. The hive mind relied on communication nodes spread throughout the fleet. Disrupt those nodes and the perfect coordination would shatter. It was a weakness, but one that would require getting impossibly close to exploit. She recorded everything and sent encrypted bursts back to Earth. Someone needed to know what was coming. Earth's global government assembled an emergency session. Representatives from every nation gathered, their faces projected on screens around the circular chamber. The news from Council Space had reached them hours ago. The debate was fierce. Some argued for neutrality. Let the galaxy's mighty species fight their own wars. Others called for helping the Council despite their abandonment. Many simply wanted to strengthen Earth's defenses and hoped the war stayed far away. Ambassador Yuna addressed them, her image transmitted from the transport ship bringing her home. The Council has made their position clear. We are not worth defending. We must accept this reality. Then we owe them nothing, said one representative, her voice sharp with anger. Perhaps, Yuna said, but we must decide who we are. Do we become like them, concerned only with our own survival? Or do we act according to our own values, regardless of how others have treated us? The question hung in the air, unanswered. While the government debated, human scientists and military officers gathered in underground facilities around the world. They spread out Daehyun's archive, 200 years of observations on every council species. They reviewed Taeyang's research on alien psychology. They studied Minji's intelligence on Varathian fleet movements. For the first time, humans looked at the data not as curious observers, but as strategic analysts. And they saw possibilities that frightened and excited them in equal measure. The Varathians were powerful, but predictable. The council species were advanced but complacent, and humans, dismissed and underestimated for 2 centuries, had learned everything about their potential enemies while revealing almost nothing about themselves. We could win, whispered one officer, staring at the analysis. If we wanted to, if we had to, we could actually win. But winning wasn't the question. The question was whether they would fight at all, and if so, for whom. On Nexus Prime, the Council continued their panicked deliberations. They called for their fleets to gather, for defenses to be raised, for allies to be contacted. But the response was slow and disorganized. 10,000 years of peace had made them forget how to coordinate for war. The Varathian ultimatum deadline approached. 48 hours had become 24, then 12. Still, the Council argued about strategy and authority, and who should lead the defense. High Commander Krell, commanding the Varathian fleet, watched the Council's chaos with satisfaction. His hive mind had calculated this outcome with high probability. The Council would fracture under pressure, making them easy to conquer. Within a year, the Varathians would rule the galaxy, bringing order through strength. Only one detail bothered him. The humans had evacuated quickly, more quickly than expected, and several human ships were unaccounted for, including at least one stealth vessel. Where had they gone? But this was a minor concern. Humans were weak and few in number. They posed no threat. The hive mind dismissed them as irrelevant to the coming conflict. This was the Varathians' first mistake. It would not be their last. The vote was close but decisive. Earth would intervene. Ambassador Yuna stood before the Global Assembly once more, now on Earth soil rather than a holographic projection. Around her, representatives from every human nation waited for her to explain what came next. The Council abandoned us, Yuna said, her voice steady. They made clear that we are expendable, unworthy of defense or respect. Many of you argue we should leave them to their fate. I understand this anger. I share it. She paused, letting her words settle. But we are not acting for them. We are acting for ourselves. The galaxy will watch what happens next. They will see who we truly are, not who they imagined us to be. We have a choice to make about humanity's future. Do we become bitter and isolated, or do we show the galaxy what they failed to see for 200 years? What can we possibly do? Asked a military commander. The Varathian fleet has 3,000 warships. Earth has less than 200 combat-capable vessels. We are outnumbered 15 to 1. G1 stood from her seat. She was young for a strategic command position, barely 40, but her reputation was built on unconventional thinking. Numbers are not the only measure of strength. The Varathians have more ships, but they fight like no one we know. They fight like aliens. We fight like humans. Explain, demanded the commander. The council species evolved in different ways than we did. Most became dominant on their worlds through individual power. Unbreakable bodies, regeneration, size, natural weapons. They fight as if war is about being stronger than your enemy. But we evolved differently. We were weak creatures in a dangerous world. We survived not through strength, but through intelligence, cooperation, and most importantly, through fighting each other. She activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. For 10,000 years, we fought wars against opponents exactly as intelligent as ourselves. We learned deception, strategy, psychological warfare, adaptability. Every human conflict taught us lessons that no alien species ever needed to learn. Because when you fight someone as smart as you are, you cannot rely on superior strength. You must outthink them. Daehyun stepped forward, adding his data to the display. Captain Minji has been observing the Varathian fleet. She has identified their communication nodes, the structures that maintain their hive mind coordination. I've analyzed 2 centuries of Varathian behavior patterns. Taeyang has detailed psychological profiles. Together we have what we need. The display showed tactical projections, small human ships moving in chaotic patterns. Varathian formations disrupted. Communication nodes targeted with surgical precision. It looked less like a battle plan and more like a magic trick. "This is insane," one representative said, but he was leaning forward, interested despite himself. "Yes," Jiwan agreed. "That is the point. The Varathians calculate probabilities. They predict enemy actions based on optimal military strategy. We will do nothing optimal. We will be unpredictable, chaotic, apparently irrational. We will target their psychology, not just their ships." Another commander spoke up. "Even if we disrupt one Varathian fleet, there are more behind them. Millions of Varathians. We cannot defeat their entire empire." "We are not trying to defeat them," Yuna said quietly. "We are trying to make them stop." "There is a difference." Soman, the communications specialist, stood next. She was older than Jiwan, her hair gray but her mind sharp. "I have developed a new communication system for our fleet. It uses quantum entanglement, but the encryption is based on human cultural context, metaphors, idioms, humor, historical references. The Varathian computers cannot break it because understanding it requires being human." "Show me," the commander demanded. Soman activated her system and sent a test message to a military base across the world. The message appeared as nonsense to the translation computer, but the human operators at the base responded immediately with understanding. "The aliens have superior computing power," Soman explained, "but computation is not the same as comprehension. They can intercept our signals but never understand them. We can coordinate in ways they cannot predict or prevent." The pieces were coming together, a strategy that seemed impossible but might actually work, not through superior firepower, but through superior understanding of how war actually functioned when your enemy was as intelligent as you were. The Global Assembly voted. Authorization for military action was granted. The order went out to every human ship, every crew member, every soldier. Earth was going to war, but not the kind of war the galaxy had ever seen before. Captain Minji received the authorization aboard the Quiet Storm. Her crew gathered around her on the small bridge, their faces showing a mixture of excitement and fear. "Earth has given us the go-ahead," Minji announced. "We will be the tip of the spear. Our job is to get close to the Varathian fleet and identify their primary communication nodes. Once we do, the rest of the fleet will follow our lead." "Captain," her first officer said quietly, "we are one small ship. If they detect us, they will not detect us," Minji said with confidence she hoped she actually felt. "We have been invisible to them for weeks. They do not take humans seriously. That is our advantage." The Quiet Storm moved through the darkness of space using human stealth technology that alien sensors consistently underestimated. The ship's hull was coated with materials that absorbed scanning waves. Its engine signature was disguised to look like background radiation. And it moved slowly, patiently, using trajectories that seemed like random debris rather than purposeful navigation. To the Varathian fleet's sensors, the ship did not exist. Humans were not supposed to be here, so the hive mind did not look for them. On Nexus Prime, Counselor Vextra stood before the council once more. The Varathian ultimatum had expired. High Commander Krell's fleet was advancing. The council had to respond. "We cannot match them ship for ship," Vextra said, his crystalline body dimmed with worry. "Our forces are scattered. By the time we fully mobilize, they will have captured key systems. I propose we negotiate a limited surrender. Give them some authority but maintain council autonomy in most matters." "Coward," spat a Quellan representative. "We do not surrender to rebels and traitors." "Pride will not stop Varathian warships," Vextra responded coldly. As the council argued, a message came through on the emergency channel. A human transmission broadcast to all council members. Ambassador Yuna's face appeared on every screen. She spoke from Earth, with the blue planet visible behind her through a window. Members of the Galactic Council, she said formally. Earth wishes to inform you that we are deploying military assets to assist in the defense against Varathian aggression. The council chamber fell silent, confused. Then several representatives began laughing. The idea of humans, fragile, weak humans, helping defend against the Varathians was absurd. With respect, Vextra said carefully, Earth's fleet is inadequate for this conflict. We appreciate the gesture, but your sacrifice would be meaningless. Please withdraw to safety. We appreciate your concern, Yuna said without emotion, but we have made our decision. Earth will fight. You will die, Vextra said flatly. Perhaps, Yuna acknowledged, but perhaps not. The galaxy has underestimated humanity for 200 years. That ends today. The transmission ended. The council members looked at each other in confusion and some dismay. The humans were going to get themselves killed. It was tragic but irrelevant to the larger conflict. None of them realized they were about to see war as humans fought it. The human fleet gathered in the empty space between systems. 187 ships of various sizes, from large carriers to small fighters. Against 3,000 Varathian warships it looked hopeless, but the humans were not planning a conventional battle. G1 had distributed the strategy to every captain. They would not form defensive lines or protective formations. Instead, they would operate in small, independent units with only one rule: be unpredictable. Jinwoo sat in his fighter cockpit, reviewing the mission parameters one final time. He was young, barely 25, but he had trained his entire life for combat. Not against aliens, against other humans in simulation exercises that taught him to outthink, rather than outpower his opponents. All units, came Jiwan's voice over the communication channel, using Soman's new encryption system. Remember, we are not trying to destroy them. We are trying to confuse them. Make them uncertain. Make them afraid. Fear is a weapon, and we know how to use it better than they do. Understood, Jinwoo responded, along with dozens of other pilots. The human fleet moved toward the Varathian formation. To alien sensors, it looked like a suicide charge. Random movements, no coordination. Individual ships breaking formation for no apparent reason. It looked like chaos. It was chaos. Deliberate, calculated chaos. High Commander Krell observed the approaching human fleet with the full attention of the hive mind. 187 ships against 3,000. The outcome was predetermined. It would be over quickly. Then the humans entered weapons range and nothing happened as Krell expected. The human ships scattered in every direction. Some charged forward. Others retreated. A few simply stopped and drifted. Their weapons fired at seemingly random targets. Their movements made no tactical sense. The Varathian fleet adapted quickly, calculating new probability matrices. The communication nodes appeared on every human display simultaneously. 7 massive ships deep within the Varathian formation, their hulls covered with specialized equipment for maintaining the hive mind's connection across the fleet. Destroy those ships and the perfect coordination would break. But reaching them required getting through thousands of Varathian vessels. All units. Jawan's voice cut through the chaos. Execute false retreat pattern 7. The human fleet suddenly turned and scattered as if in panic. Ships fled in different directions, some firing wildly behind them, others simply running. To the Varathians, it looked like the humans had broken under pressure. The Varathian fleet pursued, exactly as predicted. The hive mind calculated that destroying the fleeing humans would be efficient. The formation adjusted, ships moving to intercept the scattered human vessels. And in doing so, they opened gaps in their defensive pattern. Now, Minji whispered from the quiet storm, still invisible within the Varathian formation. Strike teams, execute. 12 small human ships that had been hiding in the debris field of a nearby destroyed moon suddenly activated their engines. They had been there for hours, cold and silent, waiting. Now they moved like bullets toward the exposed communication nodes. Jinwoo was among them. His fighter accelerated to maximum speed, his hands steady on the controls. The Varathian ships nearest him began to turn, but too slowly. The hive mind had committed to pursuing the fleeing humans and could not adapt quickly enough to this new threat. Weapons hot, Jinwoo said calmly, locking onto the first communication node. Firing. His missiles streaked across the darkness and impacted the Vorathian ship's antenna arrays. Explosions blossomed silently in the vacuum. The ship itself survived, but its communication equipment was shredded. Across the battlefield, 11 other human pilots did the same. 7 communication nodes, 12 attack vectors, multiple missiles per target. The coordination required was intense, but humans had practiced working together without telepathy for thousands of years. 5 of the communication nodes went dark. The effect on the Vorathian fleet was immediate and catastrophic. The perfect coordination shattered. Individual ships suddenly found themselves making decisions without the guidance of the hive mind. Some continued their previous orders. Others tried to adapt. Many simply froze, uncertain what to do without the constant flow of instructions and information. The human fleet, which had been fleeing in apparent terror, suddenly reversed course. They had never been running. They had been repositioning. Now they struck with precision. Not at random targets, but at specific ships that Daehyun's analysis had identified as critical to Vorathian command structure. Small human vessels darted between the confused Vorathian ships, exploiting gaps that should not have existed but did because the hive mind's coordination was broken. It was not a fair fight. It was not even close to a fair fight. It was an ambush executed with timing that required understanding psychology as much as tactics. High Commander, Krell felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The hive mind was screaming with conflicting inputs: ships reporting damage, communication nodes destroyed, the human fleet attacking from unexpected angles. Nothing was happening according to probability calculations. The humans were not following optimal tactics. They were not behaving rationally. They were doing things that made no sense from a military perspective but somehow worked anyway. How were they even coordinating? Krell's ships had intercepted human communications, but they were incomprehensible, strings of words that the translation computers rendered as gibberish, references to things that did not exist, patterns that had no logical meaning, but somehow the humans understood each other perfectly. Fall back, Krell ordered, his hive mind struggling to regain coherence. Reform at rally point 7. The Vorathian fleet began to retreat, slowly at first, then with increasing speed as panic spread through the hive mind. They had never retreated before. The concept was foreign to them. But they were doing it now. The human fleet did not pursue. They held position, weapons ready, watching the Vorathians flee. Jinwoo sat in his cockpit, breathing hard. His fighter had taken damage from return fire, but he was alive. Most of the strike team was alive. They had actually done it. All units report status, Jiwon commanded. The reports came in. 16 human ships destroyed, 23 heavily damaged, but the Vorathian fleet was in retreat. Their perfect coordination shattered. Their confidence broken. Against all probability, humans had won the first engagement. On Nexus Prime, the Council watched in stunned silence. The data feeds from the battle were incomprehensible at first. Then slowly understanding dawned. The humans had not won through superior firepower. They had won through deception and psychological warfare. They had exploited weaknesses in the Vorathian hive mind that the Council had never even considered might exist. Impossible, Vextra whispered, his crystalline body flashing with agitated colors. But it had happened. The evidence was undeniable. Ambassador Yuna's face appeared on the Council screens again. She looked tired but satisfied. The Vorathian fleet has withdrawn from Council space. They are regrouping, but they will return. We estimate you have 3 days before the next attack. How did you do this? Demanded a Melkorian counselor. Your fleet is tiny. Your species has no natural advantages. How? You were right about us, Yuna said simply. We are weak. We are fragile. We live short lives and have soft bodies. But you were wrong about what that means. Weakness taught us to be clever. Fragility taught us to be careful. Short lives taught us to adapt quickly. And soft bodies taught us that victory comes not from being strong, but from knowing your enemy better than they know themselves. She paused, letting this sink in. For 200 years you dismissed us as harmless. You never wondered what we were doing while you ignored us. We were watching, learning, understanding. We studied every species on this council. Your strengths and your weaknesses. Your psychology and your tactics. We learned everything about you while revealing almost nothing about ourselves. The council chamber was silent. The Vorathians are powerful, Yuna continued. But they are predictable. Their hive mind makes them efficient but inflexible. They calculate probabilities but cannot account for irrationality. We can, because we fought each other for 10,000 years before we reached the stars. We know how to fight opponents as intelligent as ourselves. You never learned that lesson because you never needed to. Counselor Vextra finally found his voice. What do you want from us? Nothing, Una said. We did not fight for your gratitude or your approval. We fought because it was right. But now you face a choice. The Varathians will return in greater numbers. High Commander Krell will not underestimate his enemies again. Can you stop them alone? The answer was obvious, no. The Council could not stop them. Earth offers assistance, Una said. Not as your servants or inferiors, as equals. We will share our tactical knowledge. We will coordinate our forces with yours, but only if you accept that humans are not the weakest species in the galaxy. We are simply the species that learned different lessons than you did. The vote took hours. Some council members argued against accepting human help, insisting that one lucky victory did not change the fundamental reality of human weakness. Others saw the truth that was now undeniable. Humanity possessed capabilities the Council had never developed. In the end, pragmatism won. The Council accepted Earth's offer. That night, Kyung arrived at Nexus Prime on a diplomatic shuttle. She was a philosopher and first contact specialist, one of Earth's greatest minds on interspecies relations. She had requested this assignment, and Earth's government had agreed. Kyung was going to explain to the Council something that they had never needed to understand before. She was going to teach them about humanity in a way that would fundamentally change how the galaxy viewed itself. She met with Counselor Vextra in his private chambers. The Tarkosian was still processing what had happened. His crystalline body flickered with uncertain colors. I do not understand, Vextra admitted. Your victory should have been impossible. The mathematics do not support it. That is because you are using the wrong mathematics, Kyung said gently. You calculate war as if it is physics. But war between intelligent beings is psychology, and psychology is not about optimal strategies. It is about understanding what your opponent will do and doing what they do not expect. She brought up holographic displays showing human history, battles won by smaller forces against larger ones, victories achieved through deception rather than strength, defeats suffered when commanders became predictable. Every species in the galaxy evolved with advantages, Kyung explained. The Tarkosians have unbreakable bodies, so you learn to stand and fight. The Varathians have hive-mind coordination, so they learn to attack with perfect synchronization, each species optimized for their strengths. But we humans had no such advantages. We were prey animals who became predators through intelligence alone. So we learned something different. We learned that the greatest advantage is being unpredictable. But surely your people must have some natural talent for this, Vextra protested. Some evolutionary adaptation that made you superior at deception and strategy. High Commander Krell stood alone in his command chamber, something no Varathian had done in living memory. The hive mind still functioned, but he had isolated a portion of his consciousness to think independently. He needed to understand what had happened without the collective influencing his analysis. The humans had defeated him, not through superior strength or technology, but through methods he could not classify or predict. They had attacked in ways that violated tactical doctrine. They had coordinated through communications his computers could not decode. They had exploited weaknesses he did not know existed. For the first time in his life, Krell felt uncertainty. The hive mind had calculated human weakness as fact. But facts that led to defeat were not facts at all. They were errors in understanding. He studied the recordings of the battle, watching the human ships move in their chaotic patterns. No formation, no obvious coordination, just individuals making choices that somehow resulted in perfect timing. How? The answer came to him slowly, painfully. The humans did not need the hive mind because they had something else. They had learned to cooperate without perfect communication. They trusted each other to adapt and improvise. They accepted uncertainty and used it as a weapon. This was impossible according to Varathian philosophy. Efficiency required perfect coordination, but the humans had proven that adaptability could defeat efficiency. Krell made a decision that would have been unthinkable 3 days ago. He requested a meeting with the humans, not to negotiate surrender but to understand his enemy. The meeting took place on a neutral station at the edge of Council space. Krell arrived with a minimal escort, another unprecedented action. The Varathians always traveled in groups linked by the hive mind. Coming alone felt like losing a part of his body. Ambassador Yuna met him in a simple conference room. She was not alone. Kyung accompanied her along with Daehyun and Jiwon, 4 humans facing 1 Varathian. By physical strength, Krell could have killed them all. But he understood now that physical strength was not what made them dangerous. "High Commander," Yuna said formally. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "I did not come to surrender," Krell said immediately. "We did not expect you to," Kyung replied. "You came to understand. That is better." Krell's antennae twitched with surprise. How had she known? "Because that is what we would do." Kyung continued, reading his confusion. "When faced with defeat by an unknown method, seek understanding. It is what any intelligent being should do." "Your species is weak," Krell said, stating what he still believed to be fact. "Physically inferior in every measurable way. Yet you defeated me. I must understand how," Jiwon spoke up. "You assumed that superior strength meant superior tactics. But warfare is not about strength. It is about achieving objectives despite opposition. We achieved our objective, stopping your invasion without needing to be stronger than you." "You exploited our communication nodes," Krell said. "Once we repair them, you will be vulnerable in different ways," Daehyun interrupted, speaking for the first time. "I have studied your species for 15 years, Commander. I know your patterns. If you centralize communication again, we will target the new nodes. If you decentralize, you lose the hive mind's advantage. Every solution creates new weaknesses. This is the nature of warfare between intelligent beings." Krell felt something close to despair. "Then how does one fight you? How does one win?" "You do not," Yuna said quietly. "That is what we are trying to tell you. You cannot win against humanity through force, and we cannot win against you through force either. We are too different, too adaptable. Any strategy you develop, we will counter in ways you cannot predict. Any tactic we use, you will eventually learn to defend against. We are locked in an endless conflict with no victor possible." "Then we are enemies forever," Krell said. "No," Kyung said firmly. "We are enemies only if we choose to be. That is the point. Intelligence means choice. You chose to attack the Council. We chose to defend them. But we can also choose peace." She activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. Wars and conflicts spanning thousands of years. Cities destroyed, millions dead, the ugly truth of human nature laid bare. "We know war better than you do, Commander," Kyung said. "We fought each other for 10,000 years before we reached the stars. We have seen what endless conflict leads to. Destruction, suffering, waste. We learned the hard way that victory in war is always temporary. Peace is the only permanent solution." "The Varathian Empire is strong," Krell protested. "We do not need peace. We need order." "And who decides what order looks like?" Jiwon asked. "You? The Council? Someone else? Every being believes their vision of order is correct. That is why wars start, and why they never truly end." Krell was silent. The hive mind offered him certainty. The collective knowledge of millions of Varathians all agreeing that their way was right. But humans had shattered that certainty. They had proven that being right and being effective were not the same thing. "What do you want from me?" Krell asked finally. "We want you to stop attacking the Council," Yuna said. "Return to Varathian space. Open negotiations for genuine reform rather than conquest. Use your military strength to protect rather than dominate. And if I refuse? Will you attack Varathian worlds? Destroy our civilization?" "No," Yuna said, and Krell heard truth in her voice. "We will defend the Council, but we will not invade your territory. We will simply ensure you cannot conquer others. We will be the obstacle that cannot be overcome, the enemy that cannot be defeated. And eventually you will realize that seeking peace is easier than fighting us forever." "That is not victory," Krell said. "Correct," Kyung agreed. "That is wisdom. Victory is temporary. Peace is permanent. We learned this lesson. Now you must learn it too." Krell considered this for a long time, consulting with the hive mind through his communications link. The collective struggled with the concept. Varathians did not negotiate. They conquered or retreated. But the humans had created a third option, a stalemate where neither side could win, forcing both to choose cooperation instead. "I will bring your proposal to the Varathian Council," Krell said finally. "I cannot promise they will accept. That is all we ask," Yuna said. "A chance for peace." Over the following weeks, negotiations continued. The Varathian Empire was divided. Some wanted to continue the war, believing they could still win. Others, particularly those who had seen the battle recordings, understood that fighting humans would be costly regardless of the outcome. Krell became an unexpected advocate for peace. He explained to his people that the humans had developed capabilities the Varathians could not match, not through superior strength but through different thinking. The hive mind struggled to comprehend this, but the evidence was undeniable. Finally, after much debate, the Varathian Council agreed to a ceasefire. They would return to their own space and open negotiations for council reform, not through conquest but through diplomatic channels. The Galactic Council met in emergency session to ratify the agreement. The chamber was full, every species represented. The atmosphere was different now. The humans sat at their platform, but no one dismissed them anymore. Fear and respect had replaced contempt. Councillor Vextra addressed the assembly. His crystalline body glowed with a strange mixture of emotions: embarrassment, gratitude, uncertainty. The Council owes Earth a debt that can never be fully repaid, Vextra said. You saved us when we had abandoned you. You demonstrated capabilities we never imagined possible. In recognition of this, the Council votes on whether to grant Earth full military rights and a seat on the Strategic Command. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in 200 years, humanity was granted equal status with the other species. But when offered a position on the Strategic Command, a position of leadership over other species, military forces, Ambassador Yuna declined. We do not want to command others, Yuna explained. We want only to be respected as equals. Leadership is not about power over others. It is about responsibility to others. We will serve on the Council, but as partners, not rulers. This statement shocked the Council more than the military victory had. Power was offered freely, and the humans refused it. Waikyung stood to explain. The galaxy has spent 10,000 years believing that strength is what matters. The strong should rule, the weak should serve. But we offer a different perspective. True strength is wisdom. True wisdom is restraint. We could try to dominate the Council through our military capabilities, but that would make us no different than the Varathians. We choose a better path. She paused, looking around the chamber at the hundreds of species represented. For 200 years you saw us as the feeblest species. You were wrong, but not in the way you think. We are not secretly powerful beings pretending to be weak. We truly are fragile and short-lived and soft-bodied. But we learned something that your advantages prevented you from learning. We learned that weakness can teach wisdom, that limitations can inspire creativity, that being vulnerable forces you to understand others because you cannot simply overpower them. Kyung smiled gently. You called us the feeblest species, and we accepted that title, not because we believed it, but because we understood something you did not. Being perceived as weak is the greatest